but you need to show something. You start off with some existing customers who then knew what you were doing. What did you have to do in order to even start fundraising? I mean, I understand PowerPoints and presentations, but what did you have to do?
I had to, first of all, I kind of started late because this is my fourth company. So I know that you have to build as much as you can beforehand. You can't just work on a PowerPoint and an idea. So by the time I raised, I had a product that was working and 2 paying customers. So, you know, it's like, if I have 2, I can have 20. If I have 20, I can have 200. So let's move. I think I was much more advanced than some of the other startups that are raising in that sense. But then afterwards, we have this idea when you haven't done the fundraising thing before, where you think VCs, you know, you watch the VCs on TV, and it's like, I'm gonna give money to this guy because I love him and I love his idea. But I mean, maybe that works on TV, but like in the real world, like, they're bankers. They just want returns.
Well, let's call it, maybe it's a factor of the Hong Kong market. Are they bankers that just want returns? I mean, I'm not a banker and I invest, so.
Yeah, how much?
Okay.
I mean, I think Series A investors are mostly bankers and investors. They want to see traction. They want to be. Everything has to be repeatable. It has to have a formula. I mean, if you could take all the magic from your pitch and boil it down to a boring sales, IR pitch, investor returns, they'll love it. They'll eat that up. So I think that's where you need to get to. And so I'm trying to kind of demysticize the idea of the VC as this this menacing figure who invests in great ideas. That's how they view themselves, but that's not who they are. They're really very financial investors.
Max, what do you think about that?
I think that it's true in many ways. I think, you know, after we got this recent offer, which came a little bit earlier than I thought, and it was with someone that we had a bit of a relationship with over time, so it wasn't definitely cold into the VC pitch and get an offer. So it's important, I think, to cultivate relationships so that people get to know you and see you develop the plan over time. But then I went and I checked off with some others in Singapore and other VCs, and I felt like we had the right partner. I felt that there was alignment on the vision. So I think you've got to find some intangibles, but probably go into it with the understanding that these guys are looking for a return, that they're pros at it, and they probably know a little bit more than I do actually at how to play this game. I think it was a very fortunate thing for us that we found somebody who's full-time working for me now. He's not here, so I can to talk about him. But he's a banker, actually. He's a very young guy, but he had that background, and it really helped us tremendously because then he speaks banker language directly to these guys and prepares all of the materials in a way that look, and that really expedited things for us the last couple of months. In the beginning, with the seed stage, there were some discussions where I think they were investing a lot in my experience, the co-founder's experience, and what we had in the industry, and a lot of intangibles. But it's still, the most well-known person that invested early, he said, you know, this has got to be 100 to 1 return for me. If I don't believe that there's at least that potential, then there's no reason for me to invest in something this early. And so he was doing that. He was a banker, actually.
Okay. James, were your investors kind of this philosophical with respect to looking at REIT?
I think they were. Yeah, I think they did all make a financial decision at the end of the day, but I know with all of them there was a part of them that wanted to believe in an idea, and there was a little bit of philosophy underwriting that. I know for certain that one of the investors, who's a former investment banker himself, as well as looking at all the spreadsheets, he wanted to do something for Hong Kong students. So he felt that by investing in a communication skills company that worked with mainly second language users of English, it would give young people a step up in the competitive world. I know that my second investor, he was a little bit involved with the Silicon Valley dream as well. I mean, he'd led a fairly conventional financial life in banking, and he'd come across a company that his daughter's friend has just started, and it had gone incredibly well, incredibly quickly. I think he wanted a little bit of that. I know that was his personal motivation. So I think, to me, it's twin tracked. Is they want to really like an idea. They want to like an idea. That I think they'd just be probably investing in real estate if they just wanted to really get the returns on it, because it's obviously that market. But then at the same time, they're willing to, I experience it, maybe compromise a little bit of that very early detail for, I think you've got something here, and I think you really want to do this. And for me, there's enough numbers stacking up right now. That was my experience in an angel round anyway. I'm sure the criteria do change if you go through it.
Max Tuckbush, what are the expectations from investors? I mean, with respect to after they invest in you, what are they expecting to see? I don't know. Is there any kind of accountability reporting?
So I send a monthly report, an email once a month with metrics, and the more metrics you can put, the better, because we're talking about bankers, and so they like numbers. So I think that's enough for them. I also want to add to the point that a lot of the press says you should choose an investor which is strategically aligned, which is going to open you doors and all of that. But some projects are where you're so small and you're so niche, where really, you could spend a lot of time looking for somebody strategic and so on, but what you really need is time and money. And the easiest way to get time and money is friends and family. So if you're shy about asking, your friends and family, I can tell you, I asked my friends and family because I really wanted to get started, and some of them expressed an interest. I had no idea they had money. Some people have money in their bank account and they still, you couldn't tell from the way they dress. So don't be shy in that first ask, because there's a lot of money out there we just don't know about.
Max, open for it. With respect to investor expectations, what are your responsibilities, if any?
Yeah, I was concerned about expectations and maybe the amount of time required to manage that, and then I started with that kind of monthly process, updating them. And then I think we've been able to stay ahead of the curve, and it really hasn't been an issue. We talk about growing valuations, and we've had a few small questions and concerns there. I created an advisory board initially, and what's happened is that's really sort of fading out quite honestly, and it's going to be replaced now by a proper board. But it was one of the tools that I used to say, I think you can offer me something. Not only will I give you a slice of the company, but would like to have you really make you a part of the team. And in some ways sometimes that worked better than in others cases, but that was one mechanism that I used that seemed to have worked out fairly well.
What did it work out for?
Some of the advisory board members are the current VCs, so that's one thing that worked out well. The first investor was a customer friend of mine, and he just couldn't make the time. So he's a guy who I thought would create a valuable voice, given that he really is a big buyer of logistics services. And it just really hasn't worked out. He's not in Hong Kong, and I think your board meetings, you need to have people that are really ready to have FaceTime with you. If they just want to dial in remotely, that hasn't gone well either. They really need to connect in person. And then the other member of the advisory board is joining as our new COO. So that was a great way for us to recruit somebody. He's actually a CEO at a big logistics company, and it's my old boss, and then he's joining to work for me. And the VCs are very, they see that as a valuation driver for sure.
Okay. James, expectations from your investors?
I'd like them all to be involved for what they're really good at, and actually I was very lucky to get very different types of investors at the end. I was also very keen that if they're going to become directors at the beginning and they have an active role, but that bit didn't quite pan out as I wanted it to. So, as I said before, the people that I came across and was able to get on board later on have actually turned out to be much more effective in terms of idea generation and keeping up and wanting to push things forward. But you can never really control the timing of when you meet people. But I think if I was to go back now, if I were to look at the first investors and they were to say to me, conditional on my investment is that I become a director and I come on the board, I would have known how to now ask better questions and to say, I want to know exactly what your involvement is going to be like. Can you be transparent? Can I put you on the website? Can you be open? Because for the first two, that's not the case. But they're actually taking up 2 board seats. Mm-hmm. And I would really organise that now if I could, but it's a little bit too early.
Could you explain that a little more? Because this is the part that I love, is the learning, right, after. So how would you approach that differently?
Yeah, I think this is the second company that I've raised an angel round for. I did another one for a manufacturing company in the UK. And the same thing stands there, is that if I'd known, certainly for investors when I first approached them, to say, broadly, how much do you think you're in for? And just to be a bit kind of bold and ask that question, because I was actually too shy to ask that question. I was amazed that people wanted to speak to us and actually have a go at this. I would also have asked, probably said, this is going to be a 4-week process, and that's it. And put some timeline and boundary around it, and just have confidence to say, to really think to myself, this is a 2-way business transaction. This isn't just me going out anywhere and trying to find money. So I learned from that the first time round, and then when I went in for Gweek here in Hong Kong, I was able to be a little bit more confident about my terms under which I wanted people to invest. But I didn't also think through the directorship bit, because that is very important in terms of how people look at your corporate governance and see you as being a CEO who has actually been able to bring an experienced number of people into the fold with you who are happy to go public and be on your website and to talk on your behalf. And to actually just nail those terms down, to say, if you want to become a director, I fully support that. But my terms of it is that you actively help me from month to month, is that you come to meetings with me, that you are transparent about your involvement with Gweek, because that has taken up a little bit of that space. I would definitely renegotiate now if I could go back.
Max, talk push. How would we demystify some of this? Back to James's point about, it's a two-way transaction here actually. We all look at fundraising. Oh wow, we're gonna thank you for giving me money. How would you? What's your advice to newbies?
I gave some already. Don't be shy to ask your immediate network. And I saw something that really helped me was an email template from a guy from San Francisco, where it was an email you could tell was being sent to 100 people. And I did that. I sent an email. I did that nasty thing where I sent an email to 100 people asking them for money. And it had parts in the email that were highlighted, and it was like a real sales email. And I got, I would close my round like that. So, because if you say in your email, these are the people who are already in, and this is what we have, and it's now or never, then that works. That's just basic sales technique. So you just apply the sales technique to fundraising, and you will become a good fundraiser, I think.
Max, open port, spamming people for fundraising. What do you think about that?
I think I wish I had been more direct and sort of ABC, always be closing probably in some of my processes. I think what I ended up doing is wasting a lot of people, not a lot, but I wasted a fair amount of British people's time who never were going to invest. And they were never going to invest because they keep asking very basic questions about the industry. They don't know the industry. They don't really get B2B sales, business to business, as opposed to, why don't you just make a thing for people in China that want to go to the movies or somebody they don't know, apps, and so really filtering early so that it's, it's just, filtering early. Do you understand the business to business space? Do you invest in startups? Do you have any background in the logistics industry, my industry that I'm trying to change? And if it's those 3 things, then they're actually very likely candidates. And if they don't have any of those criteria, then maybe it's just a big 1 hour at Starbucks in Central wasted.
Yeah, but Max, I guess in your industry and in the top push industry, HR, logistics, you're in what I call the high risk, high innovation space specifically, because micro learning, training, there's no relative industry. Well, I guess no, there is the training industry. Right?
EdTech, education technology is a broader parent, but I get your point.
Okay, so then,
We're weird.
how in response to what I guess Max was just saying, with somebody who doesn't get my industry, how would you be looking at it? I mean, did all of your investors get your industry?
Yeah, the first three did, because actually I've known them a long time as clients, and I had personally coached them through the years in terms of their communication and pitching skills.
Okay.
So they understood, or they interpreted it the way they wanted to, is that you are a training company and you help people. But my industry that I'm in at the moment is changing so very, very quickly. It's reinventing itself every 6 months. What used to be called corporate training is now retermed people analytics. And what used to be classroom training is now on-the-go embedded analytics as we walk around with our core competencies. And the company can tap into those figures, our key data points, anytime they want. And it's happening very, very quickly in technology, and mobile learning is really enabling a lot of that, and also attitude as well. So actually, I probably gave 5 different pitches to 5 different investors, depending on what I thought was their level of desire to understand and what I thought they could really stomach. So to the broad masses, it's a training company in speech skills. Yeah, public speaking. To others, no, this is catching a trend of exactly where HR technology is going, and a millennial tolerance for learning and self-appraisal. And it's a very different conversation. So I think confident in what you are doing and taking a two-way conversation to someone and asking them the right questions, because they definitely respect that and they can see where you're trying to take it.
So Max, top push.
No, it was for me. It was the same pitch for everyone.